It was a grey morning, and the air carried a heavy stillness, thick with anticipation. As people streamed into the courtroom, their hushed murmurs buzzed like static, filling every corner of the room. The setting was like any other courtroom: polished wooden benches, a gavel resting in silence atop the judge's desk. But what was about to unfold? Anything but ordinary. In the defendant's seat sat a man, weathered yet dignified. His face bore the look of someone who had endured 4 long years waiting, hoping for justice. His name, Mark Carter, a 39-year-old father, husband, and respected figure in his community before everything was ripped away from him. 4 years ago, Mark had been wrongfully accused of a crime he never committed, a robbery that ended in tragedy. A simple case of mistaken identity, they had said. He had always stood by his innocence, yet the system failed him, locking him away while his family struggled to hold on without him. Beside him, his wife, Jasmine, sat with tears brimming in her eyes, threatening to spill over, just as they had so many times before. 4 years. 4 missed birthdays. For Christmas mornings where their daughter, Ava, had asked the same heartbreaking question: "Why isn't Daddy coming home?" Ava, now 7, with those big brown eyes, had sat quietly in the back of the courtroom for days, watching, waiting. But today was different. Today, silence was no longer an option. As Judge Elaine Monroe, a stern but fair woman, prepared to proceed, Ava suddenly stood up. Her small frame seemed to carry the weight of something far greater. Clearing her throat, she did the unthinkable. "Your Honor," she spoke, her tiny voice trembling but determined. "Can I say something?" The judge, momentarily taken aback, motioned for her to come forward. The sound of Ava's tiny shoes echoed through the silent room as she stepped towards the bench. Jasmine reached out, whispering for her to sit down, but Ava wasn't backing down. She had a purpose. Clutching her favorite stuffed bear, she looked up at Judge Monroe. "My daddy didn't do it," she said, voice breaking. "He's not a bad man. He's my hero." The room, silent. You could hear a pin drop. The judge leaned forward, her expression softening. "And why do you believe that, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Ava's little hands squeezed her bear tighter. "Because my daddy tells me to always tell the truth. And he told me. He didn't do it." She looked the judge in the eye, unwavering. "I believe him. Don't you?" "We don't have him at home anymore," she said, her small voice shaking. "Mommy cries every night. I cry too." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "But Daddy always tells us to be strong. He says the truth always wins." Her big brown eyes locked onto the judge, unwavering. "Can you help us? Please." Judge Monroe sat back in her chair, visibly moved. It wasn't every day that a 7-year-old girl cut through the cold, unfeeling machinery of the justice system with nothing but the truth and a desperate plea for fairness. But what Ava said next, it changed everything. "I prayed every night for 4 years, she whispered. "I prayed for someone to listen." She swallowed hard, then asked the question that sent a chill through the room. "Will you listen?" The judge, fighting back her own tears, nodded. "I'm listening," she said softly. And with that, everything shifted. She ordered an immediate review of the evidence, something that, shockingly, no one had thought to do in all these years. What unfolded over the next few hours left the courtroom in stunned silence. A single overlooked surveillance tape, blurry but just clear enough, had been sitting in the evidence locker all along. And when they played it, the truth hit like a bolt of lightning. The footage showed a man, similar in build to Marcus, committing the crime. But Marcus, at that very moment, he had been miles away, at work. A clerical error. a rush to judgment, a justice system that had failed at every possible turn. Judge Monroe was furious. She wasted no time ordering Marcus's immediate release and launched an investigation into how such a devastating mistake had happened. As Marcus stepped out of that courtroom, a free man at last, he fell to his knees, wrapping Ava in a hug so tight it was as if he'd never let go. And maybe he never would. But the story didn't end there. The aftermath? Explosive. Marcus filed a $20 million lawsuit against the state, not just for the years stolen from him, but for the deep emotional scars left on his family. He spoke out about the agony of being torn from his wife and daughter, the countless nights he lay awake in a prison cell wondering if the truth would ever come to light. But he didn't stop at his own case. Marcus used his platform to shine a light on the many others who had been wrongfully convicted, those who didn't have a 7-year-old angel to plead their case. His story became a rallying cry for justice, a push for real reform, a testament to the power of truth and the resilience of the human spirit. And Ava, she became a symbol of hope, proof that even the smallest voices can spark the biggest change. Because in the end, it wasn't just the evidence that set Marcus free. It was the courage of a little girl who never stopped believing in her father, a child who dared to speak up in a world that so often silences the innocent. Because sometimes, all it takes is one voice to change everything. If you made it this far, drop a comment with your country and leave a fire in the chat, because you're the kind of person who finishes what they start.